What's up, duelists? We're here with another unique deck profile from Gabe. What you playing, bud?
I'm playing a deck I like to call Solomon's Brigade. It's pretty much the Noble Knight deck with a few of the spellcasters in it to speed it up, make it more of a rank 4 spam kind of deck.
All right, let's see what you got.
We'll start off with the monsters. Pretty easy, simple stuff. 3 Madrot. It's the main and probably best Noble Knight in the deck. And the follow-up card is the Boars. I only play one because, honestly, most of the time in my hand it's a brick. I never actually want to see it. Other targets are just the 3 Gawain. Gawain special summons himself if none of these guys have Noble Arms attached. So it comes in handy for making quick Xyz plays when you want to OTK your opponent. To finish off the Warriors, we got 2 Photon Thrasher. Same thing, it helps to make Xyz plays when you need to OTK your opponent. Honestly, going into this and setting up a board is just easy game. To getting into the spellcasters, we got the Trick Clown. It's pretty standard when you're running Brilliant Fusion in the deck, which I'll get into later with the spells. And 3 Hat Tricker. This serves the same purpose as Gawain does and Photon Thrasher. Easy Xyz plays for getting out your powerful monsters and OTKing your opponent. Another card I play is the 2 Summoner Monk. The Summoner Monk, honestly, like, you see a lot of spells in your hand. Like, if you have an extra Brilliant Fusion in your hand, you can pitch it to special summon out a monster. Plus, it's also a spellcaster, which means you can go into the Perform Age Xyz. It helps to easily OTK your opponent. I play the 1 Gwennifer. She is a Noble Arms. I recommend playing 1 of every Noble Arms. I wouldn't play any less. The 1 Sapphire. When you're 2 poor to afford Garnet, I mean, you got to make some cuts somewhere, and an $8 normal is not something I want to be spending my money on.
It's got a big butt. That's what counts.
Oh boy. 2 Max C. It's pretty standard in this format. Honestly, I wouldn't. The scrub package includes it. If you have space in your deck, I would never not run Max C. Getting into the spells, I like to call this the the bad deck core. The 2 Twin Twisters, the 3 Brilliant Fusion, and the 3 Instant Fusion. Along with that is the 2 Max C. This becomes the scrub core. So if you're playing a bad deck, I would not play any of these. As long as Norden's a thing, you're always going to want to play Instant Fusion, and there are plenty of other good targets for rank 5s as well.
Do you want to dump any cards into your graveyard with Twin Twisters, or is it just because it gets rid of 2 spell and traps? I
have thought about playing Galaxy Cyclone instead, just because it is technically better for certain matchups. But I think I want to stick to Twin Twisters as well, because back row decks really kill this. Like, every time I see a Paleo, every time I see a Magispector matchup, it's a pain in the ass to deal with.
I love Magispectors. One of our good friends plays that.
Going into the other spells, we have draw cards. 1 Day of Peace.
1 Day of Peace?
If you're playing a bad deck and you need, like, a lot of bad decks need 2 turns to set up, 1 Day of Peace, you just play it on your main phase, pass turn, and wait until the next turn to go into your real combos. It helps to set up boards, it helps to protect yourself. I honestly think it's pretty win condition against Zodiacs, because you put this out, they rely a lot on their second turn and they quickly run out of steam. So 1 Day of Peace is honestly a game saver most of the time.
Don't have to worry about that OTK.
No. Into the Void. These are honestly the 2 cards I'd consider cutting.
Are those German?
Yeah, they are German. Into the Void. Into the Void is, if you have 3 more cards in your hand, you can draw a card. It's like an Upstart Goblin, when you don't have Upstart Goblin at 3 anymore. But at the end phase, you have to pitch your entire hand. It doesn't come up often, because usually you end up using your entire hand. But if you have other cards you want to play instead, or if you want to side in stuff, Into the Void's probably the card I'd take out. And then the 1 Upstart for just Upstart's the better of the draw cards. I wouldn't play a deck without it, honestly. And for the Noble Arms, you play 1 of each. Gallatin gives a plus 1,000. Arfiderd, it blows up back row.
Come again?
I can't say its name. Please don't make me say it. Caliburn gives you 500. Destiny gives you protection from destruction once per turn. And Excalibur prevents your opponent from targeting. Now, an interesting tech you can use these on is that these 4 don't specify Noble Knights. Excalibur does, but these 4 only say that they need to be attached to a warrior. So if you have maybe an Excalibur on board, if you have a Utopia the Lightning even, you can protect it from destruction. Because, like, honestly, if you go into Utopia the Lightning, if your opponent made you go first, because it's really the only card in the extra deck that you can play that'll stall out the game, that Destiny will protect you from getting Raigeki'd at least. Caliburn will give you 500 attack, Gallatin will give you 1,000, and Arfadurd, I mean...
Come again?
Don't make me say that a second time. It'll just blow up back row. And to finish off the spell lineup, we have the one-ofs. Rhoda, you can't play a warrior deck without it. Foolish Burial, it's going to be sending your Trick Clowns or your Gwynnifer. The Soul Charge, or it's better known Skill Charge, it's this game saver most of the time when I see it, but it's one of those cards I might consider putting in something else for, like maybe a Vanities. I feel like it really lacks in defensive skill. And the Raigeki. You gotta play it in a format where board wipes are the thing, so Raigeki's the best of the 3 right now.
How many cards do you play in the main deck?
It's a 40 main deck count. I don't think, like, consistency was a real issue at first, but now it's not that bad. So if you maybe want to go a few over, it's not going to be a huge problem, but you want to get into your combos as easily as possible.
Is this a deck you could play Desires in, or are the combo pieces too important?
You could play Desires in it, but it's the same condition that most Desires playing decks would do. It's the you'd have to go through all your searches first. So go through your Madrats first, go through your Summoner Monks first, go through your Rhodas first, and then play Desires. Because honestly, if you banish straight off the top, you banish your Boars or you banish your Sapphire, you're just gonna want to kill yourself.
Been there.
Going in the extra deck, it's mostly simple OTK stuff. So you got the Trapeze Magician, 2 Spellcasters, and when you get into it, it's like Shark Fortress. It's like rank 4 Shark Fortress. It's going to give a monster 2 attacks that turn, but the unfortunate thing is that it will destroy them on the end of the battle phase. Tsukiyomi, it helps with all the consistency issues with the deck, and I don't go into it as often as you might think. It's more or less if I can go into it and I have the instant fusion in hand, and I just set the instant fusion and then pitch some useless piece of crap card. Xyz Dragon, it's pretty good for OTKs. If you didn't want to run the Xyz Dragon, I recommend Excalibur. That's the other option to run over it. I think Xyz Dragon is just better because it's generic. Daigusto, believe it or not, I actually use Daigusto more for the special summoning a normal monster than I do for the Shuffle 3. A lot of times you'll want to build an OTK board, and you'll be like, oh man, I'm like 400 short. So you'll be like, special summon a normal from the grave, going to another Xyz play.
And they're like 2 or 3 of the Noble Knights that count as normals, aren't there?
That would be cool, but they only count as normals on the field, so you always bring back Sapphire. Castel, because rank 4 deck needs Castel. You play the one of each of the Noble Knights Xyzes. For a refresher, in case you've never played against a Noble Knight deck, the rank 4 is a card that blows up spells on the field according to the number of Noble Arms you have. It's good for blowing up your Excalibur if you need to, or just, heavy storming a back row heavy deck that maybe has a few cards set that you don't want to deal with. But Excalibur, if it gets blown up, you can banish it to just rank up into the rank 4, rank 5. And an interesting tech is that you can also do the same thing with the rank 5 and go backwards into the rank 4. Something I didn't notice until someone told me about it. The rank 5 is the opposite. It blows up monsters, but unfortunately it doesn't blow up for the number of Noble Arms you control. They both have a summoning condition that when they're summoned, they can choose 3 Noble Arms in the grave and attach them, which is really good if you've already gone on your Boros combo. Honestly, I don't go into these guys that much because Kaijus are such a threat in today's format. So they're just there because they're randomly good some of the time. Utopia package. With a deck, you can make Utopia attack twice, and sometimes when you're up against a deck that plays a lot of back row, or when you're against, God forbid, Psy-frames, you want to go into Utopia the Lightning. Now you have a card that can attack twice, and your opponent can't do anything about it. The Gaia and the 2 rank 5s that you go along with it. Volcasaurus is going to do some damage. Shark Fortress, I go into far more often. It's more or less for the OTKs. Then you just put the guy right on top. You got a 2600 beat stick. Fusion targets. So you got the Brilliant Fusion target. the Gemknight Seraphonite. Extra normal summons is going to make you some decent boards, and you send the Trick Clown or you send the Gwyneth, whichever one you don't have going on for you already, and you got a pretty decent board you can establish. The Norden, until it gets hit, I don't ever foresee me not playing a deck without it. Norden is such a generically good card. It deserves the hit, but I'd be sad when I see it go. And last but not least, the Sea Monster Theseus. It's a level 5, which can get you into your level 5s when you need to. Makes dead instant fusions a little better.
Do you use this card a lot?
Not as often as I'd hope. My original, well, my other deck profile calls for the level 5 Invoker card because it's got an effect. I don't ever need it for a tuner, so I'd rather see an effect monster instead. Rajin helps Book of Moon a problem monster when you need to, but right now it's kind of just a body most of the time. So
sounds pretty good. I imagine it wins games.
It not as often as I'd hope, but honestly, you're using it for a body most of the time anyway. But it's just Rajin would be generically better.
So if you were to change anything with the deck, you'd get the Rajin.
Yeah,
replace that Theseus.
Rajin to replace the Theseus. If I ever in the future decide to run like a Dark Holes or main deck, my body is a shield, and a Devoid is the next on the chopping block. Other than that, I think the deck profile is honestly as good as it gets. Noble Knights are obviously not competitive at this level, and honestly, the only way to build a deck around them is to make it OTK.deck. If you give your opponent a second turn, you're probably gonna lose, but there's so many cards that, like, if you top deck an Instant Fusion when your opponent shot on your board, it's like, okay, Instant Fusion, Norden, Utopia game. And that's all.
It's nice to see a non-meta deck out there that actually can make plays. I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, no problem.